So for the sake of the recording, this is the Board of Health meeting of November 3rd, I think, 2025.
September 3rd, Kat.
Did I say November?
You did.
You did.
That's funny. Okay, well, I'll settle for September 3rd, 2025. Of the board, we have four members right now. Myself, Catherine Hilton, Arlene Reed, Noreen Pease, Garrett Simonson, and we hope that Wim Levine will join us. And as guests, we have Michael DeCara and Tom Seifert. And
Yes.
on our agenda, we have a bunch of old minutes from the last three meetings. And I wonder if there are any suggested emendations or additions to those minutes.
I reviewed them and I was absent for one of those meetings, but they all look fine to me. No changes for me to suggest.
Okay, hearing no suggestions, can we have a motion to accept the minutes of those three meetings?
Garrett moves to approve the minutes from the three meetings.
Arlene seconds.
Okay, and all in favor, Arlene?
Yes.
Noreen?
Yes.
Garrett?
Yes.
Kat, yes. And somebody remind me if there was another agenda item besides Michael.
No, you had said updates as needed. Michael's discussion, any unanticipated business. So pretty,
The usual. Okay, yeah, there isn't, as far as I know, any unanticipated business. For your information, the place where the well went dry, that's in progress now. I think the well's been drilled and the old well is in the process of being filled in.
Good.
Does any of you have something to share?
I think in the interest of Michael's time, let's move to his item.
Good plan. Okay, Michael, what have you got for us?
Cool. Well, thank you for.
Sorry?
We get to see everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yikes.
you're breaking up terribly, Michael.
Yeah, mostly what we're getting from you is kind of
Can you go, is there a better, maybe you can get closer to a Wi-Fi source?
He's completely frozen now.
You are completely frozen.
I just want to thank everybody.
Again, we can't hear you.
Although switching off your video, Michael, did seem to bring it back into line, so that might have helped.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Cool. Well, I'm in my car. I'm driving to the middle of Florence, so hopefully it'll get better. It's sort of ridiculous that in Northampton you don't have good signal. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you for having me and making the time. I greatly appreciate it. What I wanted to talk about, I emailed Kat somewhere in the last few weeks. I guess a starting point is, do you all know that the solar lawsuit against the town got dismissed? Is that something you guys are all aware of at this point?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I've been working on that for the planning board. I've sort of been the planning board lead for the last 2+ years and have learned a lot in that regard. And let's see if you can see me now. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And so over those 2 years, I've worked with the state. I've tried to understand different issues, and I went to a presentation at FERCog maybe like 3 or 4 months ago with Michael Hugo, who's he's one of the staff people for the Mass Association of Boards of Health. And the presentation was about energy storage systems, or ESS is what they're known as. And, you know, I got to confess, I didn't know too much about the history or regulations about Board of Health, but in talking to him, you know, he said, boards of health are really powerful, you know, and in terms of the issues related to energy storage system, or AKA batteries, you know, water quality and noise, fire risk are a big thing. And he said that the Mass Association is really pushing boards of health to think about local regulations. So that sort of got me thinking about a whole avenue. You know, in the big picture, just sort of to give you context. So in November of this past year, 2024, the state finally approved a new clean energy law. And it's complex, it's got lots of moving parts, but the basic thing is that for solar and wind related battery storage and transmission lines, the state divided clean energy projects, of which those are all clean energy projects, into big ones and small ones, quote unquote small ones. So the really big ones, the state's going to deal with, and the smaller ones, which is bigger than anything that currently exists. So in terms of solar, it would be up to 25 megawatts, and for battery storage, 100 megawatts. So bigger than the Wendell project, for example. Municipalities would continue to regulate those, but the state agency, DOER, Department of Energy Environmental Resources, is creating regulations now, and basically guidelines that municipalities will have to use to regulate solar and wind and batteries. So they're developing them now. They're getting comments. I think they're going to be okay, but not great. But one of the areas that I've seen where I think they're a little bit weak is in water protection, and which is concerning. And you know, we keep bringing up, those of us in small towns, that, you know, towns like Shutesbury are 100% reliant on drinking water wells. And the concern with energy storage is that they're lithium-ion batteries. The technology is getting somewhat better, but currently the state of play is traditional lithium-ion batteries that can catch fire. And with lithium-ion batteries, you can't put them out, fires out with water. All you do is the water contains the heat so that it doesn't extend from one battery to another battery to another battery. So the best practice is you douse them with water to keep the heat down, but there's all these chemicals get released at the combustion, which then get doused with water, then go into the soil, then go into the drinking water. So that's a concern. And then there's the reality of, if there's a fire in Shutesbury, we don't have enough water to even do that. So we will have forest fires and we will have house fires. But in terms of the Board of Health, it struck me that, you know, if the state regs are not going to really deal with, you know, water, that, you know, the Board of Health might have an option in terms of regulations in terms of public health. And I sent Kat this memo I got from the Mass Association of Boards of Health today. And Kat knows more, and then I'm glad Tom's on, because part of the inspiration was that Wendell's Boards of Health just passed something a few months ago, a regulation about energy storage. And the way it's going to play out, I guess, just to sort of round out the landscape, the state felt that the rollout of clean energy was not going fast enough because municipalities were being pesky and being NIMBY, and we were trying to get in the way all the time. And so their solution was that if there was a clean energy project, so say a big solar project with a battery, the municipality would have to have what they're calling a consolidated permit. So the planning board, the Concom, the Board of Health, whoever had regulatory control would have to have all their permits approved in one checkoff list, so to speak, within a 12-month period. Otherwise, it was automatically approved. So it seems like, you know, with the planning board, we probably get the special permit if there was one. The Concom would deal with it if there was wetland. But if there was concerns about, you know, water contamination or distance to drinking water wells or something along those lines, or just generally if you guys had concerns about public health, it seems like it would be in the realm of the Board of Health to come up with a regulation to ensure that it was, you know, that those things were protected for the town, because it's not in the purview of the planning board directly, and if it's not wetlands, the Concom can't do it. So I was sort of inspired that Wendell went ahead and did it with, you know, there was the Board of Health. I believe the Select Board was supportive, and the fact that the Mass Association is encouraging boards of health. I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I think it's an opportunity. I think the other thing I'll just mention tangentially, the planning board is just now starting to grapple with data centers, which are these high computing, you know, centers that allows artificial intelligence to operate. And so, you know, you've probably seen in the news, along with the phenomenal growth of AI, is the increasing growth of data centers because they need all the computers to run these things. And some of the things about data centers, so the town got queried during the summer about our regulations about solar and data centers. So the planning board had a discussion in August about them and tasked me with doing research. And I can send you all some of the concerns, but looking nationally, some of the concerns of water usage, actually, you know, draining water because they use so much, noise, light pollution because it's high security areas. There's just a lot of troubling aspects, especially for small towns that doesn't have a lot of natural resources in terms of, you know, we don't have municipal water, et cetera, et cetera. So I think just thinking about those as well as you think about the regulatory scheme, if it's something that, you know, the Board of Health wanted to jump into. And I might just sort of, if you guys are up for it, I don't know if Tom wants to share about Wendell because I only know tangentially about it, but does that all make sense?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. That's good. Any questions?
So I'm not sure what all my questions are, but is there data about chemical contamination of drinking water wells from other communities, other
Well,
municipalities?
I don't know from other municipalities. I'll tell you what, when I went to this presentation at FERCog, it was the association that establishes fire protection regulations nationally. So it's the National Fire Protection Association. They sort of set the guidelines, the state's copy, municipalities copy.
Mhm.
And so the presentation was by, I think he's actually on the board, but he's like part of their speaking tour to do stuff. And what he said was they still don't know what chemicals result from the combustion of, you know, so because you've got computer panels and you've got the lithium ion, you've just got a lot of stuff in. The way to think about it is there's sort of like a tractor trailer box full of computers with battery packs and sprinklers and things. So once one goes, they start burning. But I don't think it's been researched enough to actually know what all of them are. There are some which I can send you. I always forget, but there's definitely some carcinogens that are known that are very prevalent. And those, I would assume if they're in the air, they're also going to the water. That part I've read, but I can get you the backup information.
And I think with Shrewsbury's recent experience with PFAS, we are well advised to be aware about the potential for the leaching of chemicals that in the case of a fire. Do we know anything about the incidence of fires in these facilities?
It depends. Well, it depends on who you ask. You know, so for example, I wrote an opinion piece in the Gazette, I don't know, a month or two ago, and 2 people wrote in response, you know, and they were citing the incidents. So the percentage is not high in terms nationally. There's some very well-known ones, like 2 years ago, there was a really big one in California, which required the surrounding, it was actually in an industrial setting, so much better than Shrewsbury. Those folks had to either evacuate or shelter in place because of the air quality. And then the year prior, there were 2 separate ones in New York State in the same week in different locations. So it's not like they don't happen. You know what I think proponents of battery storage say is that the technology is getting better. There's a technology with iron phosphate lithium, which is different from the traditional one, which maybe has a lower precedent. I think, you know, where personally I come down is it sort of thinks that I think about the PFAS, for example. You know, you can't have an oops moment. You know, if something goes wrong and your well gets contaminated, you can't undo that. I mean, just like when I was on the select board and we were dealing with well contamination for some of the folks near the fire station, you know, the twists and turns to sort of get people potable water is really sort of a challenge. So I don't think the idea is to say no. I think the idea is to sort of make sure that the town has assurances and there's some accountability in terms of protection. So it's doing our due diligence. I mean, I find it ironic because I've been focused on climate change for decades, and the climate change, you know, the climate crisis is real, and we want to support clean energy. I think it's just a matter of the technologies and the placement of them that's a concern, and making sure that you know people are protected. So I think what I would say is, you know, because it's sort of in your purview more than any other committee, maybe just doing due diligence and seeing is there something with these, since you have regulatory power, you know, to sort of figure out how you can do that where, you know, the planning board or the Concom maybe cannot. And again, I don't know, Tom might be able to reflect on the Wendell conversation a little bit. But Arlene, did I answer that?
I think so. And I'm just wondering whether there is any model to follow for like a community that has passed some bylaw, regulation, or whatever that like allows for containment of a potential disaster. You know, like anything that's built has a chamber that
Yes.
that disallows the leaching of these chemicals. Is there some model to look toward?
Well, so in the Shutesbury solar bylaws that the planning board developed, we had one in 2023 that the town approved, and the AG rejected that on mostly technical grounds. So the one that's operational is 2021, and we didn't have that requirement in there. The 2023 I put in for that very reason, that, you know, we want to be able to contain any kind of leaching. I'm not sure, Tom could speak to it, but I'm not sure if the Wendell regulations have something to that effect. But I think that's one of the things to ensure. You know, there's the distance from residences, I think, there's the containment ability. There might be some requirements that they report to you, disclosure about what chemicals, you know, would be present if there was combustion. You know, I mean, I think those kind of things. So it's not just a black box. So.
So,
You know,
go ahead.
I just said Wendell does have a regulation that got passed somewhere in the last couple of months. I feel like there's some other towns, but you know, since they're our neighbors.
So Wendell passed a regulation, you say. Is that what MAHB is promoting, regulations rather than a bylaw?
The memo that I sent you is, I don't think they were talking, I think they were talking about regulations as opposed to bylaws. And to tell you, you know, since your world is not as close to me as other things, you know, I'm assuming the Board of Health can present a bylaw for the town, but my understanding is the Board of Health can come up with a regulation all by itself, which is the power. That you don't have to get anyone else's permission.
That's right.
Bylaw, you have to get town meeting approved.
Correct. Okay. Okay. I had an opportunity to just very briefly look at that Wendell draft regulation, and I noticed that that their reference was made to groundwater protection zones, and I wonder how those are determined and you know what they are, and would it be the whole town, for example?
If you're asking me, I mean, I'm not sure how Wendell did it. I think that it's, you know, I think that would be sort of something to think in terms about. I can't imagine a part of town that would not have water quality, water contamination prevention concerns. You know, so even in the DCR land, you know, as someone on the planning board keeps pointing out, if we put batteries there, it would go into the Quabbin. So
Right.
that's a problem. And other parts of town, maybe they're less populated now, but you know, they're going to get developed over time. So it doesn't strike me that the zones make sense. I think it's more about protective measures to make sure that anything comes in is either not so big that, you know, there can't be containment, or that it's placed, or that there's transparency in terms of, you know, for example, the iron phosphate batteries, although I'm not a scientist or an engineer, everyone says these are better technologies than the traditional lithium ion. They're less, you know, unstable. And so, you know, what you would want stable, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, there's sodium batteries, for example, that's a technology that's not yet commercially available. There's not going to be a combustion issue with sodium batteries. So if we get there, that would be really cool, and it would be moot. You know, and part of my thinking is, you know, developers go to the path of least resistance, you know, so where it's most profitable to develop, and where there's, you know, if a regulation points you in a certain direction, if it doesn't cost them more money, they'll do it. So I think if the town, for example, said, we want iron phosphate batteries, not traditional lithium ion because they're more stable, they would do that. And, you know, and it's just tied to water quality. So if they want to come, I think just doing our research and sort of creating some guardrails around it, you know, in terms of water protection. You know, the solar stuff, there's other issues about clear cutting and all that, but you know, the issue is the reason the batteries come into play. The state has solar subsidies, the SMART program. And so the requirement from the state is, if you want to get a solar subsidy for your large installation, you have to put a battery there. And on a site, you know, so if you had a 30-acre site, you could put a battery in the middle, and then if there's a fire, it's still going to the ground, but maybe that's a little bit better than having it be on the perimeter next to some stream, you know? So it's almost common sense, kind of like, if we're thinking about water and water protection and the fact that we don't want anyone to lose their drinking water capacity, how do we push people in the right direction? I think the planning board can do some of it, and unless it's wetlands related, it won't be the Concom. So I think you guys are the only other ones who have that sensibility and protective ability.
And well, Michael, in addition to the Wendell example, do you know, does DEP have guidelines as it relates to public water supply, which comes under their purview?
I don't think so. When we wrote the solar bylaw, what we've got is it has to be 400 feet from a public water supply. I think that's the only mention in our solar bylaw is the distance, and it's based on precedent. But you know, so for example, Donna McNichol, who you all probably know, who's our town council, she's working with Orange. They're actually in court because they're looking at an energy storage system in Orange that is above the aquifer that is, I think it's either 60 or 70% of the town uses for their water supply. So, you know, if there's an accident there, the whole town is pretty much screwed. And there's no regulation there besides distance in terms of protective measures. The one thing I will say, Garrett, is that I know in developing the clean energy regs, DOER, which sits under EEA, is doing the municipal ones. Then there's the Energy Facility Siting Board, which is in DPU, and they're doing the big ones. I think DEP is under EEA as well, and so I think they're checking in with sister agencies, but I don't know how robust it is. I mean, I've gone to a lot of the, if not all, the information sessions and the comment sessions and stuff, and drinking water comes up on the public comment side, but not on the policy development side, which sort of strikes me as sort of insufficient.
Michael, I have a quick question. Do you think Mike Hugo would be a good source of information? He might know what's going on in other towns and.
He's the person I met at the FERCog one who talked about it. I think he'd be excellent. I mean,
Yeah.
he basically said, you know, boards of health should be dealing with energy storage systems, and we have power to do this. You know, and it's around, as Kat reminded me, and this memo has, it's about the nuisance ability, you know, and nuisance being broadly defined. So I think he's your first stop. I mean, I'd look at the Went one, and I don't know if he's actually the author of the memo that I shared with Kat, but he's the go-to person in my mind.
What is his title, or and is he the person you first referred to when you opened this discussion about
Yeah.
when you connected at Mass Association of Health Boards?
Right, he's
Yes, that's
basically the legal counsel of MAHB.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, he's got a solid grip on this. I feel like I'm an amateur, you know, I'm sort of like discovering this stuff, but he lives and breathes this stuff. So he would be the go-to.
Okay,
I
Thank
think
you.
my hope was mostly to connect the dots and get you all to be thinking about it, but
Mhm.
and happy to provide feedback, you know, from a planning board perspective of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think within your realm of responsibility, Mike Hugo is probably the go-to person.
Yes, this is good because, you know, MAHB has not reached out. We haven't had anything from them about this. And so we were really not aware that we had any powers here.
Sounds like we should
Right.
tap into his knowledge about this. Yeah.
For sure.
Cool. Well, I think I achieved my goal of just getting it on your radar, which is really
Yeah.
what I wanted
Yes,
to do.
yes, you absolutely did. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and like I said, if you want to ask Tom about Wendell, I think he knows that she's their clerk. I've read it, but I don't really know the background story and all that kind of stuff. But and there's probably other municipalities who have done regulations.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Pat forwarded on your email to her with all these attachments, and I did quickly read through those, those attachments, including the Wendell. That was a bylaw,
Cool.
right? That, or a regulation. I can't remember, but yeah, I did read through it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. But so I think I probably said what I need to say. So thank you for listening. If you guys have follow-up questions, just reach out. I'm happy to come back or do stuff over email. But
Okay.
again, really just having it on your radar, it seems like the more people paying attention, the better. Oh, oops, I'll stick around if Tom's going to say something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So are you leaving us now?
Kat, Tom has his hand raised. Maybe
Tom, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wrote a few points about possible answers to things that just came up. One thing is that Wendell is, as far as we know, the only community so far in Massachusetts that has a Board of Health BESS battery energy storage system regulation. So it can be hard to find comparable ones in other towns. The other thing that Wendell just adopted is a Board of Health aquifer protection regulation. So the BESS regulation kind of gets at one specific use, and the aquifer protection regulation is more designed to protect surface and groundwater. The aquifer protection regulation was based on a scientific study that started in the 90s that delineated different aquifers within Wendell. And the regulation is just protecting one of those aquifers, but it's designed to be able to be amended in the future to add other aquifers to itself. Because the Board of Health felt it was best just to concentrate on the one aquifer that looked as though it contained the most potential drinking water for future use in case Wendell ever needed to tap into that aquifer for kind of town purposes as a public water supply in the future. And an important thing about the aquifer protection regulation was having that scientific study in advance. As far as we understood from Mike at MAHB, not having a scientific study, especially for the public hearing stage, would make it more vulnerable to challenges in the future. Both things in Wendell, the best regulation and the aquifer protection regulation, are regulations from the Board of Health. So they didn't require anything beyond a public hearing and the Board of Health approval, as opposed to a bylaw and everything that that would entail. In the aquifer protection regulation, instead of naming all the chemicals and whatnot, references made to hazardous materials, which are defined in a CMR in Massachusetts and whatnot, although oil and petroleum and a few other things are named. These are separate from possible noisome trade or nuisance Board of Health regulations that can be crafted by municipalities. Buckland and I believe Belchertown both have Board of Health regulations that address noisome trade or nuisances, which could also be brought into this same line of thinking about protecting water and protection from thermal runaway fires and whatnot. The best regulation, the battery one in Wendell, includes things like having an emergency management plan, an emergency operation plan, approval by the fire department. The best regulation is essentially protecting sound, air, water, and light, or addressing those four issues in one form or another. And so the applicant has to provide studies that show how all of those will or will not be impacted and to what degree. The Board of Health requires applicants to pay for the consultants and to pay for the public hearings and the listings and whatnot. There is currently, as of July, a new battery application in Wendell. And so for the first time, its regulation that was just adopted last November is going to be put, or maybe it was August, is going to be put kind of to the test and see how they can deal with this applicant. That applicant also has to apply to the Conservation Commission and to the Planning Board for adding a battery energy storage system to their solar field, which was approved by Planning and Concom in 2018 in Wendell as a solar field. But because of what Michael talked about, the incentives from the state that almost require a battery energy storage unit if a solar field or if the power it generates is at a certain level, they decided to add the battery to the application in July. So they're going for a special permit and other amendments in Wendell. But what's interesting in the SMART regulations is there is one sentence that says there is an exception to the need for a large energy storage unit with good cause if the department approves it. And nobody quite knows yet what the good cause would be, but many of us are speculating good causes might be the fire department says it would not be able to deal with a fire or a catastrophe of the size that this might generate, or good cause might be the effect on the watershed involved. The best that's being applied for in Wendell right now is not over the same aquifer that's protected by Wendell's aquifer regulation. However, it does have land that drains into the Quabbin watershed. And so we just became aware recently, the Board of Health in Wendell, that there's also a watershed protection statewide, which could be brought into play potentially. So Wendell is considering whether it might also add a noisome trade or a nuisance Board of Health regulation to its town regulations or town Board of Health regulations. However, the state actually already gives boards of health. That's what Mike Hugo from MAB told us, through state regulations, the power to invoke noisome trade concerns. So the Board of Health is not certain that it's going to go ahead with that, but they're going to consider it at their next meeting. I think those are all the things that I wanted to mention, having heard what Michael mentioned tonight.
Thank you. Michael, you have more to add?
Yeah, I just thought of one other thing I just mentioned in terms of the, in the why bother category, like how likely is this in the town of Shutesbury? And I'd say the risk of large development continues for a couple of reasons. So at the bottom of Pratt Corner, we have the substation, which ties into the electrical grid. And so as Massachusetts is trying to expand clean energy, you have to tap into the grid. And so like the reason that Wendell keeps getting these big energy storage proposals is because they also have a substation. So it doesn't quite matter where these things are in terms of context, but it matters that if they exist, there's going to be pressure to connect to them. So even though like the solar bylaw, the solar lawsuit was dismissed, I would assume that there's temptation to continue to look at how they can connect to that. And you know, the three ways to do it, it's the solar with the connected energy storage, as I mentioned, through SMART. The state also has an initiative to just do standalone energy storage, which is what Wendell has gotten two of. We have not, but those are really big. Those are just energy storage. It's a field of energy storage units with no solar attached. And so it's concentrated risk. And if you go on to the state website and like Google energy storage, there's a whole state initiative to build it out. I mean, conceptually, it makes sense. You know, if you're going to be building clean energy and it's not 24/7, you want to have storage capacity. It's really just the technology that we want to make it sure is safe. And then the third, just to sort of underscore, is with the growth of data centers, that's going to be a huge push. And all the research that I did on data centers, just like with, you know, clean energy, they're looking for places with land where they can do these things. And so a lot of rural communities are being either some, like in Virginia, there's counties that are welcoming it in and are now dealing with water issues because, you know, it's putting constraints on the actual residents. But I think data centers are looking for places where they can plop down, they can have big acreage. You know, there's issues about if Shutesbury would make sense or not, since we don't have really good water in terms of volume, but, you know, we're not next to a river or a huge lake. But I think those are the three pressures that would inform my thinking about why I wanted to bring this to you, that those pressures are not going away, and probably, in fact, they're sort of increasing as things get more concentrated. So that's just the context for urgent. I don't know if I'd say urgency, but timeliness is probably the better word.
Right. Right. Okay, well, thank you both for your input on this, and I imagine that we will be getting in touch with MAHB and Mike Hugo and talking about it with them. Okay, anything, Board of Health, is there anything else you wanted to say or ask while we have our guests here?
No, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So, Board of Health, how should we proceed on this question?
Well, I think we contact Mike Hugo. See if he's willing to talk to a Board of Health is one avenue. Another might be, I can't imagine that we're the only ones that are grappling with this. Maybe he would come to the collaborative and we could all talk about it. I'm just throwing out ideas.
Yeah, that's a good idea if we could get him to come to the collaborative.
Right.
Mhm.
Um,
do I hear a volunteer to make this connection with Mike Hugo and sort of feel him out on what we can expect from him in the way of help? Anybody available?
I can do that. I'm willing to do that. I don't know that I want to be an expert on this whole
Yeah.
subject area.
Well,
But, I'm certainly willing to reach out to him. I'm pretty sure Megan can tell me how to get in touch with him, or I think I even have some notes in my notebook how to.
just go on the MAHB website.
Okay.
He's available through that.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Noreen.
Yeah.
Thank you. That'll be great. And perhaps the rest of us can study the materials. I mean, I didn't get them in a really timely fashion, but we can study the materials that we've received and get a better sense of what future actions we might take and what the issues are and so on.
Yeah, I skimmed them before tonight's meeting because I didn't see them until mid-afternoon, but tonight's description from Michael really makes me want to go back to them and take a look at greater depth. Yeah.
And Kat, this is the document that you circulated that is dated 2022. I was confused because there was a document that you circulated that's dated 2022, but it sounded like what Michael was talking about was more recent, like within the past 2 months.
Let me
Oh,
look.
yeah, it is. I didn't
Every-
even notice that, Garrett.
Sorry?
It is October 22. Yeah, interesting.
Okay.
And
Everything that I sent out is what Michael sent me. I simply forwarded to you what I received from him. So
It arrived yesterday. I did not see it.
Okay.
I thought I heard Michael say that that the town had established regulations that we're working under in 2018, I believe it was, 17 or 18, and that they had submitted new regulations. I thought he said 2023, but they're not approved.
mhm.
I was hearing within the past month to 2 months.
Okay.
That's what I thought I heard him say, and unless it was during a time he was cutting out. But I thought I heard him say that the Wendell Board of Health recently, within the past bit of time, had approved new regulations related to this. But then when I was looking at the document that Kat sent, it says October 31st, 2022.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I don't know anybody on the Wendell board. But is it Tom that you work with them, the Wendell board?
Yeah, I'm their clerk.
Okay. So is there more recent regulations than what we have that Kat circulated to us is version October 31, 2022, proposed amendment of ground-mounted solar electric installations.
Is that a Wendell document?
Oh, no. This is sorry, this is the Shutesbury zoning board.
Right. The
Yeah.
attachment
Right.
is the Shutesbury regulation, but or excuse me, bylaw, I think. But there's a link in the text of the
Oh, okay.
email. The second to the last paragraph of Michael's letter, his
Okay.
email. There are two
Okay.
one, and they are from 2024.
There we go.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was confused about that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Wendell
Yeah.
passed a regulation in 24 and 25, but
Okay.
not bylaws, just regulations.
Okay.
Right, yeah, and the second one I'm looking at, I don't see a date on it yet, but the first of those two links is a 24 document. Yeah,
Sorry about that.
yeah.
Okay, well, we all need to do some homework, I think.
We
And
do.
We'll just, let's table this discussion for now and see what we can learn from the documents we have from MAHB, including what Noreen can find out from Mike Hugo, and plan to discuss this at our next meeting.
Yeah, it's a very important issue, I
I
think.
think so too. Is there anything else that we want to say on this or any other issue at this moment?
Kat, the only other thing that's on my mind, and we just got a little bit of information from Phoebe Walker, I think it was yesterday, and I'm wondering if Arlene or anybody knows, how we can find out more about what's going on with vaccine availability, where, what type, that kind of thing, or is the jury just out on all of that and we're waiting for the state to
Yeah, I have not heard any inside info. I know I think it was in something you sent out, Kat. I might be mistaken, but that Sarah Fisk is trying to organize not a COVID vaccination clinic, but a flu clinic
Yes,
for October. Am I right?
that's right.
Yeah, that came from me from,
Oh,
our collaborative meeting.
I say from the
And,
collaborative.
and last year, I think we had both. I think the clinic provided both, as I recall.
It did last year, but I think in the info you sent, it only mentioned flu. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that might have been what I said, but I don't really know. So I think that's something the other thing I can contact Megan Tudrin again and see if we know anything more. But I think we need to get a little bit more up to speed, because I know friends and people are asking me now, where can I go for my flu shot?
Yeah,
From all the knowledge, not flu, but flu and COVID, and all the knowledge I have is it's still last year's vaccine that's available.
Me too. And but with changes from the current administration, it may be that insurance no longer will cover it, so that it may not be that they are offered as free vaccinations.
Right.
Right.
Anyway, I think we should get on that more too, because people are going to want to know in short order.
Okay, where do you think we can find out the answer to these questions?
Let's what's DPH's website saying? Let's see.
Don't think much, honestly.
I
And
don't think they know either.
my
They
guess
not.
would, my
Yeah.
guess would be that if the clinic Sarah's working on is a contracted vaccinated vendor,
Right.
that they're probably going to take a very similar approach. If it's not CVS, but they're probably going to take a very similar approach to CVS and only do flu.
Mhm.
If I'm
Up-
I'm
up-
I'm on
Just-
DPH's website right now, and they're saying that the vaccine is the same one as last year, and there's a link to find a vaccine near me, and they're still saying most people can get it for little or no cost. And when I put in our zip code, I guess that they're going to give me a list of. They're not finding my zip code to be valid for some reason. Okay. Anyway, it looks like it's going to be pharmacy based.
Phoebe Walker's email that she sent, I think, to all of us on the board, at least I got it yesterday, did have a link, and apparently there's a toggle button or a link at FERCog for who has COVID vaccine available. But again, I think it's last year. So that was the most up-to-date information from FERCog.
Okay. All right.
Well, let's see. I'm looking at Phoebe's email right now, and she mentions some upcoming clinics. September 17th, September 25th, October 3rd. All of those have flu and COVID vaccines, and two of them have other vaccines.
Yeah.
And she mentions several pharmacies and the community health center.
Yeah.
So the flu clinics are at Mohawk Regional School, Montague Town Hall. Two of them are at Montague Town Hall Annex in Turner's Falls. So there are clinics available giving the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, and it looks like pharmacies are doing it looks like the COVID vaccine appears to be, so this was, I'm looking at the one that the CVS on University Drive, I think.
Mhm.
Yep, and it says COVID-19 vaccine is available free with most insurances. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm on a meeting.
anyway, we could get a word out on some sort of town announce about
Yeah.
that. Are so many.
Yeah, I'll put this information out tomorrow.
Yeah. But
for
it's a
people.
little confusing because it said
It is.
CVS in Amherst, and then it switched me to, I think, another on University Drive. And then when I click on it, it takes me to something that says something Main Street, which is not,
That's,
that's Belchertown. Anyway, it bumped me to Belchertown when I clicked on COVID vaccine. So that's a little confusing.
so maybe they don't have it there yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, in any case, we can put this information out. It's getting to be timely.
We should certainly do that. Yeah. Okay. I'll try to spend some time on that. I'm going to be packing tomorrow and leaving on Friday for a 3-day thing where I will be probably out of any Wi-Fi or cell signal in the Berkshires. So I may not be able to communicate well until Monday. So-
Okay, well, I'll just copy this information and put it out in a town announce.
Okay.
And
Sounds good.
I think that's all we can really do about this at the moment.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and maybe, I guess, talk to Sarah and see what more she might know about our clinic.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember that we had COVID vaccine at the clinic last year. I
Yeah.
thought it was
Yep,
flu.
we did, because I got
We
both.
did.
I got
Me-
flu and
Oh,
COVID.
okay.
Me too.
Mhm.
I don't think I did. I think I just got flu, but but if you remember getting it, then that's what it was. But I don't know about that from, I'll touch base with Sarah and see what she
Okay.
what she
Okay, great.
can tell us.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Okay. Anything else we should be talking about?
Only if there's any urgent update about the health agent search. But if there's nothing more than what your email said, then
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I know they got another candidate, but I haven't seen the person's resume. The original interview that we had scheduled has not been rescheduled.
Yeah.
And we haven't had a meeting, so I'm in the dark.
yeah. Okay,
Meanwhile, the collaborative is covering for us.
good.
Yeah,
Thanks for that.
yeah, and we've kind of gotten things sorted out with the business of how the certificates of compliance are
Right.
issued, and everything is fine with that.
Okay, I'm glad of that. Thank you.
Okay,
Good.
if we don't have anything else to discuss, I'm just going to invoke executive privilege here and declare the meeting over at 7:54 p.m.
Sounds good.
All right, so good
Okay.
night all, and thank you, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Bye.